I would love for you to recount, if you were willing to, what you witnessed back in 5 to 7 years ago, I guess.
Gosh, not long, huh?
8 or 9, actually.
During the month deployment, we came back. And when we came back, typically what happens is you'll start upgrading systems or repairing things, yada, yada. We were upgrading. We were a rare lot number, I think it's called, where essentially we were engineered or manufactured so that we could be upgraded later. It was a small amount of aircraft that were upgradable, essentially.
These are Super Hornets.
Super Hornet, yeah. And so we started upgrading our radars when we got back, which was awesome because my level 3 check ride is going to be so much easier with this radar than with the older ones. But anyways, long story short, we were flying with our older radar. We weren't seeing anything really of note. And then we upgraded our radars and then started detecting objects in our areas. There's 2 conversations here. And that's the first conversation I'm having is what my real-time experience was. There's some things I've learned since then, and I'm going to hold those. But so just to be clear that I'm just kind of talking about my interactions as a first-person observer. So, okay, we were thinking these were radar errors, because you get false track hits on our older radars. That at least was my assumption that this was probably a false track of some type until we started getting returns, at least on our camera or a FLIR system, AT FLIR. At least for me at the time, it was like, okay, well, if we're seeing these on the FLIR now being correlated, we have to assume these are physical objects. After the fact, and this is like later knowledge, I had spoke with other pilots, interviewed one of my podcasts, and I talked with others who got vectored into traffic that was interesting, particularly stationary objects. And that's the majority of what we were seeing. But he had
stationary with respect to ground track? Or
correct.
Okay.
Ground track, yep. And he was asked to go check out the object, essentially. This was over by the DARE, the range down there. Yeah. So he went off and intercepted the APG-73 radar. He essentially had to, quote-unquote, kind of zoom it in, zoom in the radar, but went away backwards.
So talk about the near encounter or whatever.
Yeah, so it was 2 aircraft with 4 people total. Only the first aircraft, the lead aircraft, saw it. They were flying to go do a mission, I don't know what it was, out in the areas. 2 of them flying side by side. The way it works is there's a single point. That's the entrance to the working areas at a very particular altitude, and everyone leaves 1,000 feet below that, or vice versa, I forget. But either way, they we're tightening up their formation, accelerating. Now they're above 10,000 feet. You can accelerate above 250, 300 knots. And so they're accelerating probably 350, closing in the formation. And then the lead just sees something go right by his aircraft. And what he described was a dark gray or black cube inside of a clear sphere.
That was stationary with respect to him, or
so
couldn't tell?
Now, I'm going to go back a little bit because the way I described it wasn't perfectly accurate. I said it flew past them, but that was just a relative view. So it's our understanding that it was stationary at that location and that they flew through it. But of course, it appeared that way to them.
What's their separation, wingtip to wingtip?
Pretty tight. I've been using about 100 to 150 feet as an average because they were probably tightening it up to get in there and stuff. So you don't know the exact distance, but about there.
Okay. So go on. So then they...
So the object, it's hard to, really objectively see things if they're going by like that, especially when it's a surprise and all that. So confidence in the data is, somewhat low here, I'll say. But, he described it. He thought it came closer to his aircraft. And so he described it as like 5 to 15 feet in diameter. That was what he could kind of glean from, seeing it zip by his aircraft at such a close distance. It's very hard to tell the size of objects unless you know what it is. So that was essentially it. They turned around, they canceled the flight after that. They weren't confident in their, radar essentially to clear their nose. They were in the ready room with all their gear on when they came back. And at this point, we've been seeing and talking about them enough where he's just like, I almost hit one of those effing things. And we all knew what he was talking about. Then we were kind of obligated because it was so close that we had to file a safety report. And kind of the chit chat in the squadron with the commanding officer and whatnot was that, okay, we weren't UFO, UAP. I mean, I didn't even know that term UAP. I didn't think it was. I mean, it was a term, but it wasn't something I was aware of. But, we thought perhaps these were some type of classified program that maybe, had inadvertently operated where they shouldn't have or whatever. Maybe we could kind of get a message to them that they were now, this was going to lead to a mishap if they didn't take care of it and get their, their stuff in order.
And it happened multiple times, right? There were multiple sightings of the similar type of variety from different pilots?
Yep.
Okay.